Hey folks, Jeff here at Back to Country. Today we're going to talk about bees a little bit. It's warming up here in Texas. Today is, well, I don't even know what day it is. I never know what day it is. It's February, around the 17th, maybe 16th, I don't know. But anyway, it's warming up. The flowers are starting to bloom, the bees are flying, and soon they'll be swarming. So I've been asked by different folks how to get started in bees, and there's a lot of different ways you can get started. You can go out and spend a whole bunch of money buying all kind of equipment and buying bees, and that may work out or it may not. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and just try to capture some swarms. When capturing swarms, the first thing I guess to understand is, why do bees swarm? Well, bees swarm because that's how they reproduce. You think about a queen bee and a beehive. A bee lays can lay up to thousands of eggs a day, creating bees for the hive. So you can get a good healthy hive with 50 to 100,000 bees in it. But that's not really reproducing, because the lifespan of those worker bees is approximately 42 days. So they're constantly being replaced. But if you want to reproduce, you got to make more hives. So basically what happens is, in the springtime typically of every year, that's when a queen will produce more queens, and then those queens will create more hives. So basically, when right before usually the first queen is born, a swarm cell queen, the original queen will take up to about 60% of the original hive, sometimes smaller, it just depends. And that'll be the first swarm. They'll leave the hive, typically swarm in a tree or something near the hive, and then scout bees will go out and look for a new place to live. And as they're moving around, that's where sometimes you'll see pictures and things like that. If you Google swarm, you'll come up with a million pictures of just bees clustered hanging on a tree, or really anything, sometimes even on cars or whatever. But that's a swarm, and that's where those bees are just hanging out waiting while the scouts are looking for a home, and then they'll take off all at once, and you'll see a flurry of bees in the air just like crazy, and they're headed for that new home. So what you want to do is, you want to try to capture some of those swarms and attract them, and you do that with what we call a swarm trap. Now, I didn't come up with the word trap. It's not really a good name for it, because you're not really trapping the bees. What you're trying to do is, you're trying to provide a desirable place for them to live that they then choose to live in. And once they go in there, they aren't stuck, trapped, or have to stay. They can turn around and leave if they decide they don't like it. But typically, once they say, hey, this is it, they're going to stay. So once you get the bees into a swarm trap, then you can take that trap down and relocate those bees into a regular hive. And we're not going to talk about hives today, but there are tons of different types. So you do your research and choose what type of hive you want to work with, and go from there. But today we're just going to talk about a little bit of swarm trap. What we've got here is, we've got some swarm traps that came from Man Lake. They're a bee equipment supplier. And these are basically just fiber pots. It's a recycled material, and they had these specially built, and they sell them. They're around 20 bucks each. But you don't have to go this fancy. I mean, if you like the fiber pot idea, because it's recycled materials, you could actually go online. I know some of the greenhouse mega store and different places like that sell actual fiber pots that are used like that for planting plants in. And I don't know what the lifespan of these things is. The Man Lake says that these will last anywhere from 1 to 3 seasons. What I do notice is that if they get wet, they're going to soak up the water. So we did something a little different here. I'll kind of go over how we put these together and what our plan is. So basically, we started out with the pots. We took a piece of plywood, cut it 15 inches wide, because the pot base is about 14 and a half. And so this is 2 foot tall, 15 inches wide. I didn't want to paint it, because I don't want the smell of paint detracting the bees. Now, they might not care, but then again they might. So what I did was I actually burned it. I took a torch and I burnt the wood, because a good way to protect wood, if you can't paint it or whatever, is burn it, and that actually is a good way to protect your wood. Then what we did is we screwed the base on. Now I took this plastic and I put it on there because the plan is I'm going to kind of wrap this plastic over the top of the hive to work as a rain shield to keep these things a little bit drier, so that they don't soak up a bunch of rain. And in the end, I hope that's going to make these things last longer, so that we can keep using them. So there's different ways you can hang these things. What I plan to do, I put a hole in it. We're going to put a nail in a tree, and we're basically just going to hang it on the tree like that, so the pot will sit in this type of orientation. The bees can fly in the front in the hole, and they will hang comb along the top of the hive on the inside. And there's lots of videos out on the internet of people doing this with this same type of trap. You can also orient it like this, where you hang it and they fly in the bottom. And you know, that may have been an intended way to do it, because there's actually some lines here, raised lines, which would be like forms that the bees could hang comb on. I don't know, I don't really like the idea of hanging it that way. It takes a lot more wood and everything to be able to build something to make that work. So we're just going to orient them sideways, and since I know that it works, I mean, literally, bees, if they like it, they'll build a hive in a barbecue or pretty much anywhere that they like. So this will be just fine. You know, the other thing about using a swarm trap like this is this trap actually simulates a hole in a tree. So if you've ever seen bees that have made a hive in a tree, this is simulating a hole, whether it's caused just from a branch that got cut off and then the area rotted out, or sometimes even a lightning strike will create an open cavern inside of a tree, and then the bees will find that, and that's a great place for them to build a hive. So that's what this does. Because it's recycled paper, cardboard, whatever, it probably has a little bit of a woodsy smell to it, and I'm sure the bees like it even better. So what we're going to do when we put these things together, I've got a couple pieces of old comb. This was just from bees that built comb outside of the frames, and I probably just took it out, and I usually save it because you never know when it comes in handy. You don't have to put this kind of stuff in the swarm trap, but if you got it, it can add to the smell that just might make it a little more desirable for the bees. And we're also going to use this attractant, Premium Swarm Lure by Swarm Commander. This is basically lemongrass oil, and I believe it also has like some queen pheromones mixed in with it or whatever. They don't tell you what their secret formula is, but this stuff really works. It does attract the bees. They like the smell of it. But you know, you can buy something like this. They also make this stuff in like a time release vial. They make liquid, they make gel. But you can also just use regular old lemongrass oil. If you've got some essential oils and you happen to have lemongrass, a couple of drops of lemongrass oil at the top of your trap or in the back of it, and then a drop or two by the entrance, and that can be just as appealing to the bees. So the whole idea is that when the scout bees find this thing, you want them to say, hey, this looks like a great place to live and to move in. So we're going to spray a couple squirts of this on the inside and a couple squirts on the outside, and then we're going to hang them up on a couple of trees that we've identified that we think will be good. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to put this together, and then we're going to move down to our first location and hang one of these things. So let us get that together, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, so we've got a big oak tree here. I don't even know how tall it is, but it's a pretty big oak tree. And it's on the side of a clearing, wide open. we can get a good face towards the southeast. So basically we want the trap to catch the morning sun and warm up early. That's attractive to the bees. Typically winter and morning time are when they think about warmth, so southeast is a good direction to face things. So all we're going to do is climb up here. Typically, you know, anywhere from 8 to 10 feet is good enough. I have no idea how high I'm putting it. I just put the ladder up there and I'm going to go up there and put a nail in the tree and we're going to hang it on there. So no reason to overthink this. So we put a little bungee cord around the plastic just to hold it in place so the wind doesn't blow it. We pulled it over a little bit beyond the fiber pot, so it's kind of just a nice little rain cover, and hopefully, like we say, it'll make it last longer. Then we're going to spray a little bit of the lure at the entrance. And that should do it. Unfortunately, we've got to leave the property, so we won't be back for about a month and a half. And hopefully when we come back, we'll have bees in there. But if not, we just apply some more lure and see what happens. What happened?